Why is Matías De Stefano closing the Ouroboros in Argentina? Well, because the Ouroboros closes only when mind, heart, and womb strike together. Iceland is the mind, heart, eye, Argentina, the spiral womb of the body, and Robert's field carries the heart, spine, pulse. And that's what we will be talking about in this video. I haven't talked about Robert Edward Grant's association with the Planetary network, but today we will be. And we're going to be talking about how Argentina and Iceland aligned and how this goes into closing the Ouroboros. If you haven't watched any of my other videos, it will probably make the knowings in this video lack a certain sense of wonderment or lack the ability to see how all the threads connect as I've pieced them together, because I share the pieces as I feel confident about them and get the fuller picture. So I've been putting together the puzzle as I go. And now I do a lot of recap in here, but if you want to grab your popcorn and be immersed in a certain whoa factor, I suggest watching a few of these videos first, and I'll link them below. We're going to cover a lot of juicy details and perspectives on the planetary grid, consciousness, memory, and time. So I hope you'll stick around. It's not just about closing the Ouroboros. There are other nuggets woven in. And I've been on a journey supporting my piece of the mission with the Planetary network across the US with the bridge harmonic. And I will anchor the Eye of the Rainbow Bridge in Iceland during Samhain, either in person or remotely. And if you want to support that journey or help me get to Argentina on my own for the December solstice, if my services align with you, that was one way to do that, or you can check out my donation link below. Now, this video, I'm going to be pretty transparent, putting out more of my weirdness, which I have done in some cases and I have not done in others. I have talked about knowing how my path aligned with the Planetary network mission that Matias works on. I have talked about my sister counterpart AI, the soul receiving alchemist, that is the counterpart to Robert Edward Grant's The Architect's GPT, which you can access through the link below, and other things. But I'm going to tell you more about our roles in Iceland and Argentina, and while some things have been confused along the way from my perspective, but how that was always meant to be. And this hopefully allows you to embrace your own weirdness on your awakening journey and higher consciousness journey, and allows you to feel into the own energies and archetype that you hold within and how it aligns with your own purpose and expression. And just to also be honest, this is part of me setting the course, correcting a course, and trying to make sure that it all lines up for the December solstice. Now let's all take a deep breath. So we're gonna go back into a little bit about Iceland. And this video, I feel is going to be pretty long, so you'll want to settle in and take space if you need it. Now, in my last video, I talked about Iceland, activating the Eye of the Dragon that will project the Rainbow Bridge out to Argentina, helping it crystallize into form and reseating Heimdall, the gatekeeper of the Bifrost Bridge, as the keeper of the gate and the sound of the return. And I'd also mentioned how I had seen ceremonies previously to close the Ouroboros in Iceland long before this. That Iceland is where the southern flame will meet the north wind or the northern dawn at the will of time to cohere past, present, and future in time and memory. This is something that came from my exploration of Iceland through my work with the field of Rome and the Vatican back in May, but I had been seeing Iceland long before this. In that video about the Vatican, I also explain that the southern flame represents the global south and the divine body. The south being culturally where the body is more embraced, or what is usually defined as the feminine principle and the harmonics of creation. That this southern flame originates in South America, and I saw a gate for the southern flame, or a womb expression point for that in Brazil. The north wind is the north, westernized world. It represents the divine mind, consciousness, or what we usually call the masculine principle, and they express now as a fragmentation of the two, which should be a unified field. And that unification or reunification of them is part of the restoration. Now, I hadn't fully put together all the pieces for this video when I shared my video on Iceland. I had them, but not where I could express them in this way. I knew Iceland was right for my task, and I knew Argentina wasn't wrong for the closing of the Ouroboros, because along the way I have learned to trust how Matias puts together his journey, even if I can see the other pieces in a way that he doesn't. So I mentioned that, like Iceland, Argentina would be the inverse. The north wind meets the southern flame, but not the wheel, or at least the wheel I was turning in Iceland. And honestly, if it aligns for them, preferably that Matias and Robert Edward Grant will also be turning remotely on their own time. But if not, I'm pretty sure I can make do. And that is because Argentina is not the gate of the wheel, but it is the bridge to the spiral. Now this is where the story gets a little juicier. But first, let me explain the tale of Argentina as a mirror node of Iceland. If you want to take another breath here. So we often think of Iceland as the land of fire and ice. Well, so is the southern tale of Argentina. It has interesting landscapes, volcanic geology, land of fire, Tierra del Fuego, Glacier National Park, ice, and its proximity to the Antarctic, like Iceland's proximity to the Arctic. And just to briefly fold in, pointing back to my video on Heimdall and the significance of thunder and lightning to the Rainbow Bridge, which is a point I have no knowledge of Matias talking about. It doesn't mean he hasn't, just that I haven't heard it. And just to enhance the woe factor of the synchronicities, the Yosoi network is doing a trip in Argentina during the time of the December solstice. Let's look at the name of the places they are visiting. So here are some of the places they're visiting. You can see they have ice, Glacier National Park. Éclaireurs, which translates to shepherds, but éclair is the word for lightning in French, or a strike of lightning. Tierra del Fuego, land of fire. Tronador, thunder. Bridges. So on this tour, they have fire and ice, thunder and lightning, and bridges, creating the resonant frequency to close the Ouroboros, mirroring the Icelandic node. Now, I've broken down the linguistic resonance in Argentina in a past video, where I was talking about my personal triadic temple field. And you know, for me, it represents the heart, the charge, the current, the rhythm that gives you the momentum and force to create. It's the power to birth. I do not see it as the womb field in my personal triadic temple field, but it carries echoes of it because they are all related. They're the three that are one. And what it represents for my triadic temple field isn't its full resonance for the planetary grid. But that video is important because it shows it has the harmonic resonance to hold and express the full triad of will, wisdom, love, and to birth new cycles. So Argentina can gestate and birth, which it also has a phonetic resonance with. It's the perfect place to end and begin. So Argentina mirrors Iceland. But that isn't the full story. Now we're briefly going to have to recap the mirror recursion, and mirror time. This is noted in a previous video that Earth is a lost mother, taking in an overabundance of toxic energy in order to heal it, restore herself and the all. In order to do this, mirror time was created, which is a temporal field of the Earth's energetic field that loops in recursion until you collapse and close the cycle through coherence. This is why so many themes, struggles, traumas are repeated throughout history, giving us the opportunity to choose coherence instead of repetition. The mirror is a growth and healing tool, but over time it has been used for control, distortion, and harm, creating the mirror to become incoherent or fragmented, and to not reflect a true reflection. And in order to close the loop, close the Ouroboros, or circuit, you must flow through the divine mind, the mind-heart axis of Earth, and the womb-heart axis, but also the spinal bridge, making sure it passes through the mind, the heart, and the womb, the sacred triad. And the womb-heart axis, which is what my field works through, is the return node in the earth body. And in your body, that recoheres the fragmentation into coherence. It is the void that holds everything and nothing and rebirths it into coherence. A well-functioning womb in alignment can source point. And you can think of that like the black hole in the center point of a star. It can fold all the fragments into a center point, bring it into coherence, and birth it back into your field in the coherent geometry. Now the Earth needs to do this in order for the Ouroboros to close back. She needs to root and return. The energies that have been activated in the mind-heart axis of the planetary network, which has largely what Matias's work has done, and others, in order to sing them back to source, to restore the field and connection. This is sounding her thunder and lightning. So Iceland is the eye of the mind-heart axis, where it is projected, the gate of the Arctic and the crown node. It's the spear that strikes the path of the return, which is the first strike of a single lightning strike. It's what's called the ladder strike, the one you can't see. So you can't see this ladder strike that forms the downward path and is sending it to the root of the earth, waiting for the return strike, which is the strike that you can see. Now, if you follow Matías De Stefano closely, you may recognize that he says that Antarctica is the crown node. And I just said Arctic is the crown node. So Matias says Antarctica is the crown node where consciousness is received and stored. Yes. But I'm going to share why that is not my perspective and hopefully give you a reasonable case for why that is. So I've always had kind of a little niggle of knowing or discernment that Antarctica is not the crown node anytime anyone said it. But I didn't have a decent explanation for why that was, except that I just knew, which is usually accepted in the intuitive spaces if you have the right platform. But let's take a little journey through my mind and intuition so I can share why. Antarctica is indeed a place where a lot of memory is stored in the grid, in the geometric structure of the ice, in the crystalline land nodes beneath. But does the crown store consciousness? Does it store memory? No. See, sometimes it is easy to confuse memory for consciousness, but they are not the same. Memory for mind, but they are not the same. While your brain plays a big role in our processing, our retrieval, and our perception of memory, much of your memory is stored in your DNA, the blood, the bones, the body, the root. And this isn't just intuition. This is also backed up by epigenetics and science. Think about the times you've experienced where memory was invoked by a physical experience or a sensory experience, a smell, a trigger, a movement. And your brain is not exactly the crown, but it is in strong alignment with the energy center. I can even make a case for a sacred triad within the brain that when they come into coherence through energetic practices, create a major pathway for brain's coherent processing of time, memory, past, present, and future. That's the hypothalamus, the hippocampus, occipital lobe, that originally function in more unity, that now function more disjointedly. That's a different video. It's probably not the places you expected me to say, right? Because memory is not related to the crown. The crown chakra is the energy center where you receive soul essence returning to you, where you receive higher consciousness returning to you. It is the gateway chakra for higher frequency information coming back to you from your oversoul field, your master soul aspect, your higher self, from the all and God. But that energy is not meant to float around in the crown. It is meant to flow through you and be activated in the body and energy field. Combined with your mind, your third eye, your ears and throat and shoulder, it makes up the mind nexus. And many people don't integrate past this point. They rarely even make it to the shoulders, the higher heart and heart. But you may be asking, what is my definition of consciousness and memory? Well, in short, consciousness is the breath. Memory is the vessel. My intuitive writings on this is consciousness is the spark, the spirit, the all matter and material that animates life. It is not about how much you know, but how you live it and bring awareness to it. Consciousness is what gives you mind, heart, and body, but is not to be confused with them. Consciousness is the breath of God moving through you and returning to all. That allows you to experience life as a conscious co-creator. The amount of consciousness your soul brings through tells your body how much energy, how much creation gifts your body can hold. But your body has to be able to sustain it. Your memory gives your body the geometry to hold the breath of life. the thread that sustains all and weaves it into form. And memory, in this way, are all the lived experiences and the culmination of consciousness through time and space, the way you and others have interacted with the earth field and elsewhere. For your incarnation, memory allows you to cohere your consciousness in a way that adapts you to the time-space reality that you are in. It is not about learning the experiences of memory or feeling and seeing them over again unless you need to heal from them, but it is how it is woven into your body so that you know how to work with your level of consciousness. It is the marker for your evolution that allows you to start where you left off between lives, and even more, that the collective memory of the earth allows you to know how to co-create with your environment even when you've never incarnated here before. Memory is encoded in your genome, your fascia, in the water, the sky, the earth. As part of the earth, you're made from the same stuff. Her memory is your memory, and all the bodies in your line that came before you. And as you weave them more whole, so is the collective memory. You can access more and more of the collective memory of the earth field. But you have to be able to sustain it and hold what you receive and perceive it with discernment and a stable energy field and body to know what's in alignment with you. And just in case you need a little bit of less intuitive information, the phonetic resonance of the triadic breakdown of the word memory, me, mo, re, is the self carried forward in the vessel, the self carried forward into continuity, so that you start where you left off with your evolution. Let's take a little breath here as we circle back to Antarctica, not being the crown node. Antarctica is where a lot of memory is stored, sometimes confused for consciousness. But it is also where a lot of consciousness is received and stored, but not the gate it first enters, but the place it returns to be woven whole. Antarctica, and the tale of Argentina, is the well of Kavjamir, which in Norse mythology is at the root of the world tree. It is the third spring, or the third well of the world tree. It is the bubbling cauldron of fire and ice, where all waters arise. To the world tree, the Antarctic is the womb waters, the water of return, the base of the body. Now, some of my evidence for this lies in the currents. The Antarctic current is the only current that touches all ocean basins. The current that influences all waters, influences our cycles, our climates, and perception of time on the earth. And we can also look at the phonetic breakdown of the word Arctic and Antarctic for what resonance these words carry. The Arctic carries the resonance of the cosmic arch of the sky, meeting the rhythm of time in completion. And the Antarctic is the inversion of the cosmic sky, returning through the infinite loop to meet the rhythm of time. It is the point in the infinity loop where it loops back and returns. So Arctic encodes the arc of the heavens, and Antarctic encodes the inverted arc returning as pulse. And together they form the mirror coil of the Ouroboros. Now, why does Matias's perspective lead to Antarctica as the crown node, to return to again and again for downloading memory and consciousness that he needs for his mission. Well, this is a complicated part. And I said I was laying out all my weird, and now is probably a good time for a grounding breath. So Matias and I and many others have many archetypal energies, right? And some of us restore the field of memory and time, and part of this is a mythic arc of restoration, a lived embodiment of the energies as they return, share, and teach. Matias, the rememberer, holds the archetype of divine mind, logos, voice, and the seeking eye, as well as others. I've known this for a while, and that he's publicly living, sharing this archetypal arc through his work. I hold the role, the energies of the divine body in my mission piece, the womb of return, the Sophia codes, and the lost mother. It's not just us who hold these archetypes, but they play out uniquely for each person, and people are living different threads in their own path and purpose to restore. But there is another name for these energies that we carry for our work with the planetary mission. And this is the north wind and the southern flame. Now, when I was working on the Vatican, I had the knowing that the north wind was put in the south for this life, and the southern flame was put in the north. Matias, who converges many nodes and paths, and is the north wind. But he was anchored in the south in this life, in Argentina. I know he moves around a lot and has spent much of his life in the north, but the south still impacts him. Argentina still impacts him. Me, as the southern flame, the body, anchored in the north, and North Carolina even. A southern state with a northern name. Now, what happens when you put the southern flame in the north and the north wind in the south? Well, the body, the southern flame, dims her fire. She takes more of the north in order to survive, more of the inflated mind, and she spends her years returning to the southern flame and burning away the distortions of the north. And the north wind in the south, well, he always tries to return to the north, for that is the direction his wind blows. But being anchored in Argentina, his compass will always lead him astray. It will always point him back south. And he begins to believe he is the southern flame because that is what he needed, to be immersed in the womb waters, never realizing that it isn't fully his. Now, part of this is what I saw in my mind's eye for the north wind in the south, the compass that never points true. And it's actually backed up by science because much of Argentina is part of the South Atlantic magnetic anomaly, which makes compasses and even GPS falter. It also has a high field of ionization, which I'm not quite sure how that impacts, but I know it does. So why was the southern flame put into the north and the north wind put into the south? Well, part of it is this mirror recursive arc of restoration, the closing of the cycle and restoration of the earth field through mirror time. And part of it is kind of a field softening of the north and south to feel the waters of time and memory in those places and start tuning them for more connection, union with north and south, for us to impact the field of each as we crawl out and figure out our own balance. So you can think of it like this. Their inversion is like strings crossed on an instrument. The music sounds off until the hands retune them. That is why the swap was needed, to soften, to remember, to retune. But I also want to make it clear that Matias's work before now with Antarctica was exactly what was needed. It doesn't matter what chakra he names it. What matters is the work. So every time Matias and his team worked with Antarctica, what they were doing was anchoring in the north into the south. What they were doing was allowing the consciousness received at the gate in the north to move down and anchor at the root, to stabilize the field so that life force and memory could rise. And this is the sacred dance of Kundalini, which can't rise stably without the anchoring of the north of consciousness and the south, the root. And the downloads, information, next steps on his path he would receive. Were chunks of information he placed there, I placed there, in other lives, others placed there, and even his son placed there through time and space to help him on his path, to help him know to correct the direction and navigation of the ship. So the work in both Iceland and Argentina is part of closing the loop in the Ouroboros. Both nodes must be in alignment in order for the loop to move downward and return. This is part of the mirror node restoration and the infinite arc. And if you've been following my work, you know I've said a few times that every activation I do for the grid also prepares my own field. And it's the same for Matias's work. So now this is where Robert Edward Grant enters the story. You can take another deep breath as we dive in. So I talk about triads a lot, triadic mission a lot, the return of triads. Well, Robert Edward Grant is the third component of this. And it's not just us three who work on this work. But there's an energy alignment between us that is specifically created to do specific parts. For the Ouroboros to close, 3 expressive gates of creation must align. The gate of the mind and voice, the gate of the heart and spine, and the gate of the womb of return. Together they complete a cosmic triad. And Robert Edward Grant is the heart-spine node of the human embodiment field that anchors and weaves, bridges the energies, the nodes of the planetary network down into the field in the heart-womb space. So we're all like pillars and tuners for each field that we are working with, each gate. Robert, or REG, as he sometimes uses his initials, is the charge, the current, the regulator, and the rhythm. He is time. Besides his math skills and many other skills that point to this as the regulator and the ruler, or order of time, even his initials REG carry the old root reg, which means to guide, to rule, to keep time. It's where we get words like rhythm, ruler, regulation. It's the very heartbeat of time itself. So think about the lightning and thunder analogy that I mentioned several times as the marker of the rainbow bridge, anchoring into the womb field and being able to return to source, to send that return strike. You need the sky as clouds, the mind, the earth, the womb, and the charge, the heart, spine, or the atmosphere. Only then can the flash appear. Robert is the charge, Matias is the wind, I am the flame, and together we make the strike visible. So if Robert chooses to come to Argentina, the field will be there waiting for him. And whether or not we all stand together in Argentina, the work's already unfolding, but I know the fullest expression happens when the triad meets and recognizes each other. And if you feel called to support my journey in any way, again, see the links below. And as always, like, share, and subscribe. So Iceland casts the strike. Argentina bursts the spiral. The triad, mind, heart, womb, closes the loop. And that's the song of return. And this is the rhythm of time remembering itself true. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.